Okay, so we're going to begin with our look at the. Sorry. Sorry, we're going to begin with our look at the second revolution and this idea of the phases of the revolution. So we have the bourgeois phase, the liberal phase is the first phase. Now we're moving into the radical phase of the revolution. The second phase of the revolution, dominated by several key concepts. Part of the radical reformation or revolution rather is the idea of republicanism. So we're going to see that move to the elimination of the king has created a republic. The power of the republic is going to be consolidated under the Jacobin party, and the Jacobins are going to use that to pursue some what can only be regarded as some radical policies, and also is going to lead, of course, to violent action. Um, they what the Jacobins do in taking power is they use a partly divided revolution. The countryside is in revolt because of the drafting for the war, and also because of attacks against the church. The people are still reeling from hard times within the cities, and they're also feeling the pressure of fighting these greater powers that France has gone to war with, and also the pressure of the draft. Right, so people are at this time period really feeling intense anger and anguish, and the Jacobins are going to take advantage of that. Perhaps one of the most important figures of this second phase of the revolution is not the bourgeoisie, but rather the poor people in the city, what the French called the sans-culottes, which just means those that didn't have knee breeches, which is a style of pant, right, that were associated with the wealthy class. They were just poor laborers, many in the cities, but the strength of the masses, the strengths of the mobs are going to be a part of the driving force, the energy behind the Jacobins' rise to power. And Robespierre and the Jacobins, they tried to appeal to that. They tried to appeal to those people and get them all fired up as their source of power. And so it really is sorry, Katie. It really is the sans-culotte that drives this phase of the revolution. One of the interesting features of the radical phase is not only the actions of the everyday people, it's also going to be the actions of women. Women are going to form political clubs for the revolution. And as we already saw, that women in the first phase, in the storming of Versailles, are going to play an active role in this revolution. So this isn't going to be just a revolution held by men in the streets. The problem, though, for using the masses and the sans-culotte as a source of power is that once the masses get moving, they're very hard. They become very hard and difficult to control and to slow down. And this is going to be part of the reason that the reign of terror is going to be able to build up so much steam. In this picture that was in your book of McKay, I think it's a great summary of the ideals of the first phase of the revolution, and a little bit of the ideals of the second phase, but it's quickly going to fall apart. So here we have liberty, holding the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen in her right hand, and the spear in her left with the freedom cap. Associated this idea of that the people are willing to fight for the rights and for the revolution. But that very fighting for the revolution is going to boil over into the reign of terror. The key feature here is fear. Fear is going to lead to intense nationalism and intense revolutionary radical activities during the second phase of the revolution. Fear of conquest, fear of a return of the monarchy, fear of destruction of the revolution, fear of reinstitution of the estate system. Those fears are going to translate into violence, into extreme activity. Some of the great phrases that come out of the second phase of the revolution to really highlight the ideals of the revolution and the destruction of the old system is liberté, égalité, fraternité, which is liberty, equality, and brotherhood for everybody. It's during the second phase of the revolution that the tricolors become introduced as the new symbol of Republican France, and the destruction of the old regime as well. So Robespierre is able to use this to consolidate power. By the time we're in 1793, the revolution has become radical enough. The Jacobins have gained enough control in the assembly that And they feel empowered enough through the Committee of Public Safety, which is essentially a police wing of the revolution, to make arrests of journalists in government. And they arrest some of the more significant ones, and the other ones kind of fade into the background. And by the time we're at the end of the summer of 1793, Robespierre and the Jacobins are firmly in control of this government. And again, they're using dissatisfied peasants and dissatisfied poor in the cities, and really, really the fear of fighting to turn people into radical ideals. And we can see that in our own society today, right? When fear becomes really strong, radical messages, oftentimes violent messages, tend to play a little bit more to the public. And that was only exacerbated in this phase of the French Revolution. So if we turn to the real, I think most historians would argue the real cause of the end of the liberal phase of the revolution is war. One of the things that happened in the Second Revolution is France, to fight this war, throws the weight of their country at the coalition powers aligned against them. What they did was they used their advantages. France has more people and more wealth than other Western European states, and they were going to use that number of people and wealth to try to fight those multiple powers. So some historians have argued that the French Revolution might be one of the first true examples of total war. Historians argue, and total war is really invented as a concept of war. But what they do is, in total war, they gear their entire society to fighting this war. Industry was geared towards wartime production. They tap into an idea of a sense of nationalism or defense of the revolution to defend it. They're going to start to ration goods and orient the economy around fighting this war. And then the large-scale conscription that's going to go in is going to show that they're using their population and gearing their entire population to the defense of the revolution and the defeat of the coalition. So Mackay writes that most decisive element in the French Republic's victory over the First Coalition was its ability to draw on an explosive power, patriotic dedication, a national state, and a national mission. Everyday people really felt that they were fighting, and the Second Revolution is a good job of framing this, that they're fighting for their equality, fighting for their future. And we see in the Second Revolution, France using total war and taking their large population advantage. Massive conscription. 800,000 were drafted by January of 1794 from the French population. France, by population, is going to outnumber its enemies 4-1. So although they're fighting multiple powers, France feels like it can hold out in these wars at the very least because of a war of attrition. That even if they're not the most well-trained troops coming in, that they're large in numbers and hopefully wear the enemy out to some kind of peace settlement. The revolution is at the very least trying to defend itself long enough that the likelihood of a return of the Bourbons is going to be unlikely. It's not until Napoleon that the revolution really thinks of expansionism and total defeat of these powers. So in this, what does Robespierre do other than kind of orienting the Jacobins, orienting much of society towards fighting this war? There's some other changes that go on socially and economically. Robespierre and the Committee of Public Safety gained the trust of the sans-culottes. The people are appealed to this kind of revolutionary and radical activity. They push for a more equal planned economy. Some have argued that this is the first instance in European history of socialism where the government comes in and starts planning the economy and trying to make a greater equal distribution of wealth and maybe even more significantly the government began to regulate bread production. They regulated industry, including weapons production, towards the state. There was a revolutionary bread. They had a recipe that was designed to maximize the use of the grains in that and to keep it as cheap as possible. And instead of a free market economy setting the price of goods, the government sets the price of goods. So in a minute, we're going to look at other social changes created by the Second Revolution.